After learning the theory part of the module, now let's move on to the problem solving part of this module. So let's start to learn how to solve a problem. This is your first question. Read the question thoroughly. Read twice or thrice and try to understand the information that's given in the question. Mr. Ram, an Indian citizen, left India on 22 September for the first time to work as an officer of a company in Germany. Determine the residential status of Ram for the assessment year 2021. So, in that question, you are asked to find out the residential status of Ram, who is an individual, and we know that determination of residential status of an individual is explained in section 6 subsection 1 of Income Tax Act 1961 for the assessment year 2021. So, in the initial stage of learning how to determine the residential status, please follow the procedures that I demonstrate through this video. So, when you start solving the question, the first thing that you have to do is divide your page where you are intending to solve the problem into two. So, first divide the page into two. First thing, divide the page into two like I have done this, an upper portion and a lower portion. This part will be your main part where you will be writing all the information that you get from the question, and the second part will be like a working note where you will be writing your conditions, that's your basic conditions and additional condition that is necessary for determining the residential status. So once you have done, you have divided your page into two. Now, let's once again go back to the question and read it. Mr. Ram, an Indian citizen, left India on 22 September for the first time to work as an officer of a company in Germany. Determine the residential status of Ram for the assessment year 2021. Here we will follow a reverse model. We will start with the last sentence of the question. Determine the residential status of Ram for the assessment year 2021. So this sentence will be the heading of your solution. So the next thing that you have to do is start with a proper heading for the solution. So you have to give a proper heading. So your heading will be determination of residential status of Mr. Ram for the assessment year 2021. So in the upper part of your page, you have to give a proper heading for the solution. So follow my instructions carefully. So just give a proper heading for your solution just like this. Determination of residential status of Mr. Ram for the assessment year 2021. Okay. Now come to the lower part of your page, that means your working note, and give here two headings, basic condition and additional conditions. So just like this, give two headings in the lower part of your page, basic conditions and additional conditions. Okay, then the next thing that you have to do is note down the assessment year and the previous year. So in this case, the assessment year is 2021 and the previous year is 1920. So you have to note down the assessment year and the previous year. That's the next procedure. So after noting down the assessment year and previous year in the main portion, you have to also mention the assessment year and previous year under basic condition and also under additional conditions. Okay, so after doing these things, now we have to write down the basic conditions. You have to point out what all are the basic conditions and what all are the additional conditions. We will first start with basic condition. We know that there are two basic conditions. The first one is in order to become a resident, an individual has to satisfy at least one of the basic condition. At least he should be in India for 182 days in the previous year or 60 days in the previous year plus 365 days in the 4 previous year preceding the relevant previous year. So these are the two basic conditions, and for an individual to become resident, he has to satisfy at least one of the basic condition. So next task we have to do is we have to check whether he satisfy at least one of the basic condition. So first let's check whether his stay in India is for at least 182 days in the previous year. So which will we get from the question. So once again go and read the question. Mr. Ram, an Indian citizen, left India on 22/9/2019 for the first time. So that means he was in India till 22/9/2019. So Mr. Ram left India on 22 September 2019. So now we have to check whether during 2019-20, that means from 1st April 2019 to 31st March 2020, his stay in India was for at least 182 days. Okay, so next we have to find out how many days he was there in India starting from 1st April and he left on 22 September 2019. So till that date, whether his stay number of days stay in India is equal to 182 days. After counting the number of days stay in India, we understood that Ram was in India from 1st April 2019. So in April he was in India for 30 days. May there are 31 days and he was in India. Then June 30 days, July 31 days, August 31 days, plus September there are 22 days because he left India only on 22 September. So the 22 days he was in India, when we add all these days up, we'll get 175 days, which means that Mr. Ram was in India for the previous year 2019-20 for 175 days. And we learned that in order an individual to become resident, he has to satisfy basic condition. The first basic condition states that he should be in India for at least 182 days in the previous year, but he had stayed in India only for 175 days, which means that he doesn't satisfy the first basic condition. So we have to strike the first basic condition out as he doesn't satisfy the first basic condition. But no problem, we have another basic condition. So we have learned that in order for an individual to become resident, he need to satisfy any one of the basic condition. So the first basic condition is not satisfied. We'll move on to the second basic condition of 60 days in the previous year plus 365 days in the four previous year preceding the relevant previous year. Okay, so before checking for the second basic condition, hold on. Let's go back to the question and read it once again. Mr. Ram, an Indian citizen, left India on 22 September for the first time to work as an officer of a company in Germany. So, why Ram left India? He left India for employment purpose. So, that means he went abroad for employment purpose. So, we can't check for the second basic condition as the second basic condition is not applicable in case of individual who leaves India for employment purpose, who leaves who goes abroad for employment purpose. So that means, which means that this particular condition is not applicable in the case of Ram as he has went abroad for employment purpose. So he doesn't satisfy the first basic condition, and the second basic condition is not applicable for Mr. Ram as he has went abroad for employment purpose. So we have to conclude that as he doesn't satisfy the first basic condition of 182 days stay in India, as he had stayed only for 175 days in India, and the second basic condition of 60 days plus 365 days in four previous year preceding the relevant previous previous year is not applicable in case of Ram, as he has went abroad for employment purpose. So Mr. Ram turns out to be non-resident. As he had turned out to be non-resident, the second base is additional. We need not check for the additional condition. So our problem is solved. We have determined the residential status. So we have to write out the conclusion also. At the end, you have to write down this conclusion statement also. So since Mr. Ram doesn't satisfy the first basic condition of 182 days in the previous year, and the second basic condition is not applicable for Mr. Ram as he went abroad for employment purpose, Mr. Ram turns out to be a non-resident. So this is your final answer. You have to underline your final answer. Mr. Ram is non-resident. So what is his residential status? Mr. Ram is non-resident for the assessment year 2021. So this is the basic way how you solve a problem relating to determination of residential status. You have to follow all the procedures that I have mentioned now. Step by step, you have to try to solve this question.